Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I have no experience in the military, and I don't serve on National Defense Committee. So why am I here? Well, I do serve on the Standing Committee for Veterans Affairs. I've been there since 2015. As a matter of fact, I'm the matron of the committee. I'm the only one that's been there this entire time, outlasting a decade's worth of 10 ministers and different members every time the government has had an election. I've experienced everything on that committee in my heart and in my mind with all of those who have come to share their stories and to share their concerns. And I am standing here today simply on behalf of the survivors of military sexual trauma in whatever form. We did a study of women in the military, and out of that study came the report, Silent No More. They spoke of their experiences, and I have to say, there's no other way to hear what this government should be doing than to sit down and not just read the report, but sit down and watch and listen to every one of those individuals who took the risk and were brave and courageous to come and share exactly what has happened to them within the military. And so, I'm hearing about the concerns that it was so devastating and it wasn't treated properly. So we're going to move it all over to civilian court. These women know what's happening here because they're not being heard. They're not being respected because they do not want to have everything shifted over to the civilian court. And there are reasons for that are rational and were shared at this committee, and they are being completely ignored. Why? Why? Because this government wants it to go away. They want our national defense to be able to function without this in the rearview mirror. That is not what the survivors want. They want the option to do it in civilian court, take their perpetrator to court, or within the military as an option. And as a matter of fact, if you read all of C11, there were good reasons there and means to also give them the choice to move between the two. This is not complicated. It can be done. And every member that has been attacked in some way should have the opportunity to have that choice. Out of that same report, Silent No More, a recommendation came forward to have a Women's Veterans Council. It was announced on December 2nd, 2024. I was at the installation ceremony for the members that were chosen and celebrated the creation of the council that spring. But they joined a plethora of advisory councils that have had minimum input, minimum impact on the decision-making of this government. Believing that their contribution would be different, they were excited, and then time went by. I attended a major conference where they were represented there, and they were praised for their participation and input in making this conference take place. I later learned from a number of them, that's just word salad. We were not consulted. Okay? So, January 14th, 2026, a letter of resignation. 6 out of the 12, 5 out of 8 Canadian Armed Forces members put their letter of resignation in because they saw none of what they expected to have happen on that group. And this was what they said. Today, more than ever, we believe in the importance of coming together, speaking collectively, and demanding accountability. Meaningful change will not come from symbolic structures or performative consultations, but from clear institutional commitment, dedicated and transparent funding, and mechanisms that genuinely recognize lived experience as expertise. And this is something over my decade plus on that committee that I've come to realize. They are always considered, but they are never recognized as experts in what they present at that committee. And we're seeing that again today in the way that they're being responded to. In response to C-11 in its original form, concerns actually came to light at an appreciation event for women who served in the Canadian Armed Forces, including those who contributed to the study, that was sponsored and put on by the Liberal women who are MPs on Veterans Affairs Standing Committee. I wasn't formally invited, but I showed up. And it was there that they expressed openly, we're not happy with C-11. It's not going to do what we need it to do. And so I had the opportunity to represent them and talk to my colleagues in national defense. They listened. This government is not listening. As a matter of fact, they're being punitive to the very people that they should be supporting. So I'm just going to quote a couple of the individuals that I've come to know and be good friends with. I love their tenacity, their grit, their truthfulness, and the fact that they don't see themselves as victims. They are survivors, and they love the armed forces. Their biggest desire is to see this gone, but they don't believe that that can happen if suddenly there is no accountability. And we know that the chain of command is culpable here. They are part of the problem. And I get the rationale, but it's not right. And it's punitive to the very people that this government should be supporting. So I'm going to quote Donna Van Leusden. For many years, survivors in the Canadian Forces, survivors, had limited or flawed options, but they still had options. Under this bill for criminal code sexual offences committed in Canada, survivors are given none. Everything has to go directly to civilian police and civilian courts, regardless of what the survivor needs, prefers, or feels safe with. That is not trauma-informed. That creates trauma. That's sanctuary trauma. And there is no survivor-centered, and it is not survivor-centered. And it may offer less flexibility than the military system ever did. She was involved in actually putting together a program that they could have function within the Canadian Armed Forces, and they were even doing tests, and it was working. There are a lot of members of the Canadian Armed Forces that have seen what's gone on and didn't want to be part of that, don't want to be part of that, and looked forward to having this as an option. It was shut down. And then I'm going to quote Christine Wood, who was the one that bravely at that meeting of the committee and veterans said, we're not happy with C-11, and she explained why. She said, I'm absolutely opposed to the transfer of military sexual offences to the civilian justice system. I support the creation of an independent system of justice for sexual crimes within the military. So we have different views, don't we? But it's not an either or, it's a both and. She went on to say, I support it because the CAF must uphold its own good order and discipline. That responsibility is essential for transparency and accountability. Limiting survivors to a single pathway to justice weakens our agency rather than strengthening it. We want choices. To be clear, I'm not defending the status quo. The military justice system failed me too. But replacing one system that's broken with another system that's completely and consistently failing victims of sexual offences does not create justice. It simply relocates the problem and removes CAF's responsibility for fixing it. Transferring all criminal code sexual offences will, in my view, increase the number of high-harm incidents. And this is important. Low-level sexual misconduct must be both reported and pursued because these are the early warnings of a toxic sexualized culture. Requiring a young newly enrolled CAF member to walk into an RCMP detachment to report a low-level incident is unrealistic, and it will suppress reporting. Speaker, survivor autonomy is one of the strongest predictors of recovery after institutional betrayal, and sexual trauma. Bill C-11 risks creating a system where survivors feel processed through the justice system rather than empowered within it. And that quote, as well, is from Heather Vandenneer. This is wrong, and it's going to cause more problems than it fixes. Thank you.
Before we move to questions and comments, the member has a device on her desk that was buzzing, and it was interfering sometimes with interpretation. So the member could just move it away. The buzzing doesn't sound very loud near her, but it's quite loud here, and I could hear the interpreters was even louder. So we could do that. Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The Honourable Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Justice Arbour came up with a recommendation where it is transferred over to the civilian process. A previous standing committee of the House in which the member would likely have voted for that particular report, and she indicated that she did, that it does exactly what it is that this legislation currently does, or is purporting to do. The question I have for the member is the Justice Arbour, who would have met with literally hundreds of victims, and combined, you're probably talking well over 1,000 people directly, indirectly, I believe did her homework. Based on the expertise that she brought to the table and the people she consulted with, she came up with this recommendation. Does the member believe that, Justice Arbour is wrong in her recommendation?
Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Well, I thank the member for the question, and the tone in which he presented it to me was appreciated as well. I voted for the report. When you vote for that report, you are saying to all of those individuals who are suffering, we are here and we are hearing you and we want to see change. I voted for that recommendation at that time. And over time, these same individuals who gave testimony there had time to process. And you know, it's interesting that what ended up being the recommendation in that report is also the recommendation that was put forward by that one individual. There were others that have done excellent work too, and it needs to be changed. Thank you.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for l'Honorable Député.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's 2026. The first allegations against General Vance took place in 2015 when the Harper government, rather than action, gave him a promotion. Since then, we've had the Arbour, Deschamps, Fish reports, and we're still discussing this crisis in military justice in Canada. So I have two questions. First, I'd like to know why all governments under Harper, Trudeau, and even today's government have not really worried about this, and I'd like to know my colleague's opinion. Why has this government refused to consider the Block's amendment to give the victim a choice between facing military justice or civil justice in circumstances where these victims can see their trust eroded in the current system?
Member for Yorkton Melville.
Yes, thank you so much, Speaker, and thank you for the question. And I appreciate the fact that nothing around here moves the way I would make it move if I was in charge. Cathay for Prime Minister. No, quite happy to not be. That being said, the reality is that, yes, politics interfere often, and I think the member knows that as well from even where he sits. That being said, I forget the second part of the question. Oh, why? Right. Why in the world has this happened? That's a really good question, and that doesn't get asked often enough. I firmly believe that the reason that all of this excellent opportunity to give our veterans the best chance to change the culture of the armed forces has been denied them because it is more politically expedient to this government to make it go away. Thank you.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Cowichan Malhad Langford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for her thoughtful and heartful words. We may hear the party opposite continually refer to the Arbour report, yet much has changed since then, whether it's the mandatory duty to report, access to the SMSRC, or military members at the time did not have access to victim liaison services or independent legal support. So I was wondering if my colleague could explain why the party opposite continues to refer to the Arbour report, who did not testify at committee, and fails to refer to the supportive Deschamps and Fish reports that do support choice for military sexual trauma.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Yes, well, I really appreciate that question. I actually wrote down on my paper cherry picking, not choosing to look at the broad picture of what is being presented to them on behalf of veterans who have suffered military sexual trauma and will continue to suffer under the CAF until things improve and there's changes made that truly need to be made.